So let me discuss how, or maybe why also I decided to go into online dating. So I only started like trying online dating for myself, and this was actually in 2018. So as I had mentioned earlier, I have worked for an online dating company for actually 8.5 years. So when I started working for this company, those very many years ago, I was like, so you mean there's people who actually use these platforms to meet up with people and eventually, their long-term partners? For me, that was very, very interesting. And the online dating industry is a huge goldmine. It's a very big market, and that's a story for a whole another day. But anyway, so of course, when I started working for this company, I was already in a long-term relationship, and for me, I just never thought that one day I would be going the online dating way. But guess what? I am definitely glad I did go the online dating way. So yeah, I started working for this company. I was in that relationship. That relationship ended at some point, and I was like, what do I have to lose? Let me try this online dating thing. And I went into it, and I was one of those people who was expecting to make that connection overnight, and that was not the case. And definitely at some point I was like, bruh, I don't think this online dating thing is for me, so I'm gonna take a break from it. So yeah, when I actually met my babe, I was kind of on a break from the app. But then he sent a message and checked out his profile. I was like, okay, hello guy, let's see where this goes. And then we talked on the app, then we took the conversation off of the app, and the rest is history. So what I'm trying to say is, first of all, I never thought I would be the one using online dating. So most of the times people will be like, Nani, Mimi Daisy, never. And then at some point you find yourself going into that. And trust me, sis, trust me, bruv, there is nothing wrong with following that route. If it works for you, well and good. If the old school dating works for you, well and good. I'm all for people finding connections and finding love. So back to me working for this company, and I was like, never will I ever go into online dating. And then kumbe mganga lijiganga basi, alafu sasa hapo ndo ngoma ikaanza. Ushansikia? Anyway, let me stop. So yeah, you can go online, check out these online dating apps, these online dating platforms, see what works for you based on what you're looking for. If you're looking for someone maybe someone from a specific if you're into maybe the interracial connections kind of thing, there's a couple of websites for that. Do your research. If you're into someone in the military, there's a couple of sites for that. If you're looking for a connection but someone of the older crowd, there's definitely platforms for those. And if you're looking for more of the young inside, there's definitely platforms for that. So some of the sites or the apps or platforms I've already mentioned, but you can always just Google is your friend. Just do your research also. So what are the pros and cons of online dating? I would say for me, a pro is definitely making that connection with this other person, and they're probably in a different country, in a different continent altogether. So you make the connection with that person and you get to learn a lot more from this other person that you normally would not have learned from someone who you would have made a connection with, maybe in the club or whatever the place could be. So I think for me, a pro is definitely interacting and making connections with different people from just different backgrounds, and you just get to learn a lot more than what you already know. And then let's talk about the cons. Wow. I feel like doing my own version of Rono's Nairobi. So this is my version of online dating, Bora. Well, there's a whole lot out there. It's a jungle out there, a good jungle, and a little bit of the wild bad jungle. But I'm just gonna list like 3 or 4 of the cons that I have personally experienced in terms of using the platforms, and personally experienced in terms of working for an online dating company. Of course, seeing what the members and the clients were going through. So one of the cons is definitely you're at the risk of talking to someone or making a connection with someone who necessarily won't be very truthful on their profiles about themselves, because you do remember, again, people have different insecurities, right? And sometimes the people who normally go for online dating would be maybe people who have issues meeting up with or making a connection with people up front, like face to face kind of thing, because they have insecurities maybe in with how they look, or something like that. So a lot of the times such people would withhold some certain information from other people on their profiles, so they won't be like giving you all that 110% of everything about them on their profiles. And then you make a connection with this person, maybe you meet up, and that's when you discover like more to this person. So you're definitely at risk of that, making a connection with someone who's not being truthful with you on their profile. And then there's the whole disadvantage of distance as a constraint or a barrier for your relationship, especially if you happen to make a connection with someone who's on the opposite side of the world. Like in my case, it's not easy, and you also need to know yourself and know what you can handle and what you can handle. For example, if you know you can handle such distance, then you can stick to trying to meet people the old school way, or just trying to meet people within your local area, like within Nairobi or just within Kenya. So it entirely depends on you. If the distance thing is like such a huge barrier for you, then narrow down your search to people around your area. If it's not, then the more the merrier then. All right. And then the other con is definitely you are at risk of being harassed or even stalked sometime by someone with who you've made a connection with online. So we know that not everyone takes rejection that well, and we have a lot of cases. You can always look it up where you find a guy or a woman has made a connection with this person. They started talking online, and then they decided to meet up. And of course, maybe one of the parties involved was like, okay, this is not what I signed up for. I'm just going for this date, and you're never going to see me ever again. And then this person now starts hammering them with phone calls and texts, and they even go to the point of knowing where they live, and they start stalking them and all of that. So yeah, you're definitely at risk of that true harassment. And then the last con for me is scammers. Bruh. na kuambia kuna matapeli kila mahali, na dadangu na ndugu yangu, kuna matapeli pia wa mapenzi, useme sikukwambia. So scammers are such a big headache. I think scammers are like the biggest headache for online dating platforms. So you really need to be careful when you're on these platforms. Yes, you are on there looking for a connection with someone else to find your long-term partner, but there's someone who's there for totally the wrong reason, just taking advantage of you and things like that. And there's people who have even killed themselves because of, being taken advantage of by these scammers, and they ended up losing money, and of course they ended up losing their time and their efforts and all of that. So you really need to be careful, sis. You need to be careful of matapeli wapo, matapeli wa mapenzi wapo, so tahadhari dadangu. So those are the cons for me, and the last bit would be talking about my personal thoughts in the whole online dating thing, or maybe things, well, I think by the time I was going into the online dating thing, I already knew these things, but for someone who's never tried it out, I would want you to know this before you go into the whole online dating thing. And for me, these are mainly two things, and I've already kind of mentioned it. Do your research well, know what you're looking for. Don't be too naive, don't be too gullible on these online dating screens. As I said, matapeli wa mapenzi wapo, so please be careful. And then if you really have to meet up with anyone that you have met or made a connection with online, always make sure that you meet them like in a public place. Never meet them at their house or at your apartment or anything else where it's just the two of you for the first time. For most of the dating sites, they usually have a section for just educating you or giving you online dating tips, and this is usually, for all of them I think, or most of them, this is usually like the number one thing is never meet someone you've met online in not a public place. Always meet them in a public place. Never send someone money online that you've met online and you've never met face to face. And there's a whole list of them, so whichever platform you decide to join, always look at the online dating tips. And then the second one and the biggest tip for me is be patient. Be patient, sis. Because I feel, and I mentioned it at the start of my video, I feel people go into online dating with such huge expectations. Like they expect to make that connection like that, like instantly, like within the first 24 hours or within the first 1 week or 1 month of talking to people. I mean, you could be lucky and that happens, and good for you that happens, but I just don't want people to go into it with all these expectations and then they end up disappointed. So be patient and know that you're gonna have to meet a lot of frogs before you meet the one.